and I have my Guy Fawkes mask on there. I need to get a personal one, and maybe I'll just speak as Guy Fawkes in the corner here. So yeah, maybe first to point out some of the numbers that most people in the audience might know, but cybercrime is a huge business, and the projected damages for 2021 are about 6 trillion. So if you just look at data breaches in the United States, so the average cost for these data breaches for a company is $8.6 million. And so there's a data breach almost every hour now. And the reason why it's going down at the end, which is going to be different once all the data is in, is that typically these data breaches take more than 200 days to actually be discovered, and then it will take another 80 days or so to actually mitigate against them. You probably heard about the fact that last year Zoom was compromised and 500,000 accounts were just distributed freely on the dark web. And there's a lot more. So I'll make a couple of those examples just for storytelling to make that obvious. So these are probably a lot of the data breaches that people have heard about. So Yahoo lost hundreds of millions of records of hundreds of millions of clients. Uber paid a stiff fine because they actually covered up their own data breach for almost 2 years, where the records from drivers and customers were compromised and were available for sale. And then the largest fine was paid by Equifax for $575 million. And people are still to this day experiencing the externality of that particular data breach. And most people should know that, but there are laws in every single state that require the immediate disclosure of these data breaches. And we'll show that it's not only the states and the AGs that are coming after these companies for not doing that, but there's also other regulators that have an impact on that. I'm going to show some of those. So then what I differentiate, but it's also part of data handling and data security, is active data abuse by firms. So Facebook paid $5 billion in an FTC settlement, specifically because they had already been, at the time when they kept doing these particular violations, under an FTC decree that they violated. By the way, was violated again earlier this year. Amazon paid $888 million. I don't know why this is such a funny number, but for GDPR violations in this year, earlier this year. And then before that, the largest fine was paid by Google for $56 million. Same reason, GDPR violations. They didn't implement the necessary tools for people to actually have their data, quote unquote, be forgotten. I'll talk about that for why that actually is kind of a nonsense requirement, a nonsense ask, if you will. Then also what I would include and have included is anything that's a BSA or so Bank Secrecy Act violation and or AML violations. And overall, globally, banks paid about $14.2 billion in fines, and the US makes up 80%. US banks make up 80% of that fine. And here's just a few of the agencies in the United States that are concerned in any shape or form with certain privacy rights. But yeah, there's a lot more agencies that I don't mention on here. One particular one is interesting, is BIPA, which is the Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Act, which is now in very similar fashion being implemented by Texas, Washington, California, New York, Kansas. And so that particular law led to Facebook paying yet another fine, specifically to Illinois, for the violation of biometrics laws. They were using the biometric features of Illinois citizens to train their AI. And so they ended up paying or settling it for $550 million. And as you can imagine, there's only so many companies that can pay a $550 million fine. And so for a lot of companies, that would simply be the end of that particular